Liev Shreiber, everybody. Salt's producer, the man also brought you G.I. Joe and the Transformers, Lorenzo D. Bonaventura. And lastly, Evelyn Salt herself. Give a warm welcome to Angelina Jolie.
Can you let that gentleman know that I'm trying to videotape so we can get some videos?
I'll get the conversation started, and then if we have some time, we'll open up questions to the audience. How about that? Lorenzo, let's start with you, as we should, with the producer. How did you first come across this project, and what attracted you to it?
Hey, Dred.
7 years ago, I read a spec script by Kurt Wimmer that just had this great character with this great internal dilemma. And it took a long, long time to get this made, but eventually we got it made with the exact right person.
Angelina, you must get offered a lot of films, especially action films. You have to make a choice, obviously. What drew you to this project versus maybe some others you could have chosen?
I thought it was one of the smarter scripts I'd read, and I'd done a lot of action movies, but they'd always been based in fantasy in some way. So it was the first time I got to do something based in reality, and I think that makes all the action harder and tougher and just a lot more fun. So
Jesus Christ.
Now, you've worked with Phillip before on Bone Collector. Does it give you a certain amount of confidence having a director that you have some history with when you're making a film that is this demanding?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, Phil and I worked together 10 years ago, and we both changed and grown up a lot, and especially me. And I knew Philip's one of those rare directors that takes story very seriously and research very seriously, and so he makes a great, smart, proper, dramatic film, and at the same time loves and understands the big action sequences and all the big fun of these type of movies. So it's rare that there's that balance. Usually these types of films are one or the other, and because of Philip, this film is both, and I knew that with him it would be that. So
Philip, I think one of the strong suits of many of your films is casting. What was it like working with Liev and Angelina, and what did they bring to the film?
Well, Angelina brings, as we know, an extraordinary acting ability combined with an amazing athleticism. But it's not the athleticism that makes those stunt and fight sequences so dynamic, it's her acting ability. Because it's make-believe, but she makes you believe it. And Liev is, I think, one of the greatest living American actors. So that was a no-brainer. They were both no-brainers, really, and reason to get up in the morning and go to the studio.
Liev, what are the challenges a film like this presents for an actor versus something that's maybe more actor-driven, something that's more dramatic when it's this physical?
I'm under the very misguided impression that everything is actor-driven. I think the interesting part, I think, you know, for both Angie and myself, was what motivates someone like this. You know, there's the Russian spy swap that happened a couple of weeks ago, and I couldn't help but think, with someone who spends that much time in deep cover, what motivates them? And that for me is what made the film so interesting and made the character so interesting to pursue.
I heard that Columbia actually engineered that whole Russian thing. It didn't really happen. It was just a big publicity stunt. That's what I heard.
It's one of the most impressive marketing schemes I've ever seen.
All right, let's open up questions to the audience. If someone has a question for anybody up on the panel, feel free to work your way to a microphone. If I can find you, I will let you ask a question. Where are we at here?
Ooh.
Go ahead.
My question is for Angelina. I know that you've used the method for preparing for roles. Did you use that for Salt?
Oh, it's a nice question. I did. I think I do every time I work in some way. The method is so much about getting back to you know, your memory and using your sense memory, and so for any kind of emotional scene, there was, funny enough, there were some kind of good heavy scenes in this and to kind of pull from things that kind of tear at my soul and move me, and you know, there was that opportunity for this.
Thank you.
Next up, sir.
Hi, Ms. Jolie. My name is Jim. I understand you filmed some of the movie in Bethpage, New York,
You did?
where I'm from.
Ah.
And I'm curious, do you have a favorite part of the film or scene where you think it's very integral in the movie, or it's very important? I'm sure all the film is, but something you remember specifically.
That we shot at Bethpage?
Well, anywhere in the film. I'm from Bethpage, so I had to mention that.
Well, one of the most fun, the part of the helicopter in the end that you'll see it for was actually outside, I don't know how many, 60 feet up in Bethpage. So that was fun. But there was quite a few. I mean, Liev and I have some memorable scenes. I think that were some of my favorites.
Liev, one of the parts of the film I found most interesting was your relationship with Evelyn Sell, Ted Winter's relationship with Evelyn. Can you talk about that a little bit? Because it changes drastically, obviously, in the film.
Yeah, I can't talk about it too much because I don't want to ruin it for anybody, but suffice it to say that Ted takes it very personally when he finds out that Evelyn's, or when he thinks that Evelyn's betrayed him. It was just a really fun ride. You know, it was one of those things where it just kept twisting and turning, and it was really fun as an actor to sort of, you know, do you play what you know, or do you play the scene that's right in front of you, or you know? And I guess the lesson I learned is that it's always best to sort of play the scene that's right in front of you.
That's great. Go ahead.
Hi, Ms. Jolie. My question is, did you do your own stunts? And if you did you get any injuries from those stunts?
I did, and I did. I got, oddly, I got injured in one of the most ridiculously easy stunts in the movie. I had to just jump into a door and shoot sideways and kind of roll to the ground, and I rolled right into a desk, and I cracked the front of my head open, and not my like skull, but I was bleeding, and I have a little scar now right here.
We barely stopped. We barely stopped.
Yeah, we came back a few hours later and tried, but you know, and then I thought actually that I had some problem because I couldn't hear everybody well, and I thought, oh my God, I've done it, and I've got a concussion, and I'd forgotten I had my earplugs in from the gun. So I was fine.
Phillip, how do you handle that when you've got some of the biggest movie stars in the world wanting to do their own stunts? It must make a director a little bit nervous.
Well, we had a secret weapon called Simon Crane, one of the greatest stunt coordinators and second unit directors ever in the history of mankind. A genius who was the architect of so many of these wonderful action scenes in the movie. And he knows Angelina's strengths and he knows her limitations. So he lets it go right up to the edge. When he says no, she knows it shouldn't go over the edge.
Do you find that actors tend to want to do more stunts than they're even allowed to?
Just say that again?
Do you find that actors tend to want to do more stunts than perhaps they even should?
I find that Angelina wanted to do every stunt. In fact, she did. This is an unusual summer film. There's no CGI Angelina in this movie. There's no stunt double. It's her.
That's great.
Hi, my question is for Angelina. Hi. I was wondering, you said you did a lot of fantasy action and you wanted to try reality action. I wanted to know what was the first thing that grabbed you, your interest in saying, I want to do this part?
Well, part of it is that I love doing action and I love doing dramatic films, and I've never really been able to combine them. And as for action, it's sometimes, you know, I've had so much fun doing certain films, but you can get away with so much when it's fantasy. You can bend a bullet and you can jump off something that doesn't really exist, or you can, and you can have fun and you can stretch imagination. But for this one, it was just such a nice challenge to say, we have to work so much harder to convince the audience that all these things are absolutely possible. And so my style got meaner and harder and darker, and it wasn't as kind of fun and pretty, and that made it, I think, better. I think these stunts in this movie is a better action movie than ones I've done. So yeah, it was that, and the character. I think she's a fascinating character. You can never talk about her because it's all a secret, and you have to let the pieces unravel. But she's a really interesting, kind of damaged, unusual type of person. So I think people will relate to her in a very human way and identify with her.
Hey, by the way.
Lorenzo, sometimes in an action film, especially with a lot of action, it can tend to overwhelm sometimes character or story. How do you walk that line and make sure that you're servicing the story with the action and not letting it take over?
Well, it's one of the tricks of it is that, you know, we're trying to entertain everybody, but we're also trying to make it feel as real as possible in a movie like this. And there's a combination of things that take place. One is the actors really have to give it a sense of reality, and the director has to be watching that very carefully so that we can push reality to its most extreme, maybe even a touch over, but it feels like it's grounded. And so there's a lot of attention to detail, to little things that we hired an ex-CIA consultant, for instance, who gave us a lot of great details for Angie's character. And there are things that sort of happen subliminally that you will notice, and then there are things that you will actually notice. And it's that sense of detail which Phillip brings to scale in a movie, which is one of the tricks for, I think, most of the big movies. The hardest trick for the director is to keep the small human being central in these huge action sequences.
It also helps that when you have such brilliant and fine actors as we have. I mean, that's the secret of maintaining interest in an action scene. If you've got interest in the characters, and the character interest is due to the actors.
There's probably no amount of explosions that could overshadow these two actors. That's what I'm guessing, right?
It'd be pretty hard to overshadow.
You have a question?
Yes. I wanted to ask Liev, what is the decision process in doing a stunt or letting the stunt double pursue that stunt?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
You want to know what your decision process is, whether you're going to do a stunt or whether you decide, I'll let the stunt guy do that, I'll back off that one.
No, I didn't. Phillip just said I did everything. I didn't do anything. What's my decision process? How long I'm going to have to sit with my foot in a bucket of ice is generally, that's one. How much is that going to hurt my back is another one that I think about. Am I going to bump my head or my face in any way? That's another one I think about. Is anything fast coming at me from any direction? That's another one I think about. Are my clothes going to get torn or anything like that is another one I think about. There's a lot of factors that go into me deciding whether or not I'm going to do a stunt.